What holds people back from being successful? One of the biggest things is fear. Now, I've heard the definition of fear, or at least the interpretation of fear, is false evidence appearing real, which is kind of a cute saying. But I thought I'd dissect fear a little bit deeper to really understand what holds people back and maybe what's holding you back. So let's break down fear. I think the first thing we're concerned about when it comes to fear is that of failure. In other words, things are not going to work out the way we want them, and then we're going to take it personal, and then our self-esteem takes a hit. Again, we take it personal. Now, we also have expectations. Sometimes we set these expectations that are not realistic, and when we fall short of those expectations, we feel like we failed, and so we're afraid to feel that way, and that's where part of the fear does come in. Then there's anxiety. Anxiety is this essentially not knowing what the outcome is going to be. That's what holds a lot of people back. That's a big one. In other words, because we don't know what the outcome is, we're not certain of the outcome, we're like, oh, I just don't want to do it. I'm going to hold back. I'm going to think about it. I'll start next year. I'll do that next year. In other words, we keep pushing things off. The last one is repercussions. In other words, if you fail, the fear is that it might impact you negatively. It could be personally or financially or from a career standpoint, very detrimental, right? So how do you reframe fear so you can use it to your advantage? Here's what I'm going to suggest. When we look at failure, why don't we depersonalize it? What does that mean, depersonalize it? This is a powerful concept. When somebody rejects you, rejects what you're offering, they're not really rejecting you, they're rejecting the product or service you're offering. In sales, we call that total depersonalization, when you detach yourself from the product. Now, whatever you're working on, whatever you're afraid to work on, if it doesn't go your way, depersonalize yourself and almost like stand apart from it. So for example, let's say you wanted to start some type of business and the business doesn't go well. Don't say, I'm an idiot. I'm no good. I'm not smart. Don't do that. That's personalizing it. You depersonalize it by saying, this didn't go well. What could I do differently? What could I do better? What should I do? And how should I proceed? In other words, you're not attacking yourself. You're attacking the process, how you approached it. Let me say this, it gets important. You're attacking the process, how you went about it. You're not attacking yourself. In other words, you're becoming very objective and saying, okay, I need to change my approach. What didn't work? What did work? What do we need to change? Next, when we look at expectations, let's be realistic. Too often we want to start something. We have this image of what it should be, right? These expectations are so out there that when we don't hit those expectations, again, we feel like we failed. But the reality is that your expectations were out of line with reality. Jordan Peterson, the author, said something interesting during a Joe Rogan podcast I thought was really fascinating. He says, when you're afraid to start something, he says, instead of, setting a goal to motivate you, a high goal to motivate you, which is what most people tell you, Jordan Peterson said, lower the goal. Lower the goal so much so that it's so easy to do and step over the line, so to speak, to reach that goal that you can do it. So for example, let's say that you have a goal of reading one book a week. You're like, well, I don't know if I can read a book. Well, in general, can you read a book? I don't know if I can read a book. Okay. Well, what if instead of reading a book, maybe you could just read 10 pages a day? Could you do 10 pages? Person says, no, I can't read 10 pages a day. How about 5? No, that's still too much. How about 2 pages a day? No, how about 1? Can you read 1 page a day? Person says, yeah, I can read 1 page a day. Then you begin there. And then what happens? When you start reading a page a day, you're typically going to wind up reading more than 1 page. But what you did is you hit your goal of 1 page. You set that goal so low that you were able to hit it easily. And what that does is that it builds this mental momentum, because if I can do 1, maybe I can do 2. So as you set your goals in the future, again, be realistic, and I would argue also that maybe you can lower your goals a little bit so you can hit them that much more easily and build that mental momentum. Number 3, anxiety. Again, the anxiety of not knowing the outcome can just be like, I don't want to do it. But what if I told you that anxiety is a sure sign that you're growing, that you're learning, that you're outside your comfort zone? What if we reframed what anxiety really means? So instead of getting anxious and nervous, it's like you should tell yourself, yes, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm scared even, but that means I'm growing. And as soon as you reframe that, anxiety becomes your ally, not your foe. And last but not least, repercussions. Let's think about this. Even if you failed at a business, what is the worst that can happen? It's not going to kill you, right? You might have some regrets, but you know what a bigger regret is? Not trying. So again, when you think of the repercussions, don't be afraid of what might happen, because you know what? You're going to survive it. We always do. We always survive failure. So again, don't let that hold you back. So let's go through the list again. As opposed to looking at failure as something personal, you what? You depersonalize it, right? When you look at expectations, be realistic, look at it for what it is, and maybe even lower them. When we look at anxiety, realize that, it's all about growing. And that's why you're feeling anxious, because you're not comfortable. When we're not comfortable, that means we're growing. When you're too comfortable, obviously there's no anxiety. And the last part, repercussions. Again, it's not going to kill you if you fail. Failure never killed anyone, unless you're jumping out of a plane without a parachute, right? But kidding aside, in general, it's not going to kill you. And the worst thing to do is live with the regret of never doing anything. So on that note, here's what I want you to do. Embrace fear. Again, learn to live with it. Learn to accept that it's part of the growth process. Depersonalize it. Be realistic. Again, go forward with anxiety. You're growing. Repercussions, it's not going to kill you. But at the end of the day, if you take that chance, if you roll that dice and you overcome your fear, what's waiting for you on the other side is your reward.